All right, I'm at Jacob's Plain Gun Club match, June 19th. So far, hitting pretty good. Uh, the tuner brake is working great. Everything's staying centered out to distance. So far, the furthest we've shot is 637 yards, but everything's going really well. It's extremely hot, and people are wobbly on the positional stages. So let's get a quick tour of what's going on. No one's shooting now, but I'll check back in. But so far I've had one clean stage. The very first stage I shot was clean. I didn't have any verified dope out to distance, so I plugged in what I had in my Kestrel and trusted that the velocity was good from the Magneto Speed V3 and that my groups were going to be center after firing my 100-yard cold bore shots. They were good to go. Still stacking them, so we'll check back in at the end of the match. You tap the autos in. It's locked.
Should be.
Okay.
It says locked.
Okay. All right. So I just wanted to follow up on how the EC tuner brake shot during our local club match out at Greenville. It did really well. So I'll start out with that. I had a few fellow competitors and friends concerned that maybe because I tuned it at 100 yards that it would be off at distance. Our first stage was at 637 yards, and I had no issues. So, worked out great. I cleaned the first stage, so no problems at all there. It just was spot on. I struggled a little bit on some of the positional stages. It was hot, and honestly, one quick tip to anybody who's newer at PRS style competitions: make sure your eye relief is set up not just usable at prone, but also whenever you're in a positional stage. And the reason being is because if you're struggling to get a perfect eye box and not feel like you're looking through a straw, and you get some of the tunneling effect, you really want to make sure that the optic is centered up to your eye, that you have the proper relief, and that you're able to see through the scope well. And that's something that I didn't have. I had set it back up when I switched back to the Vortex Razor Gen 2 from the Z Comp that I borrowed. And if Z Comp is watching, it's a great optic, but I'm gonna have to save for a while to buy it. So anyhow, but with that being said, I still had a great match. There was about, I think around just under 30 shooters, and anytime you can get a top 10 finish at Greenville in North Texas, you're doing pretty good, because there's some of the best shooters in the United States always participating there. So I got 8 overall. And then in the I-45 Cup, because your aggregate score, your average goes up with each higher finish, and your 2 qualifier scores, or your 1 qualifier score, I don't remember exactly how it goes, you can move up higher or lower in the standings. So I moved up from 12th overall in the I-45 Cup, which is a North and South Eastern Texas state match. I moved up from 12th to 10th overall. Apologize, I'm sweating. I just got out of the gym. The weekend is usually whenever I have my time to do things like this. And I don't have a home studio, and I'm in the garage, and it's hot. It's probably about 100 and something degrees in here. So anyway, great match. It was spot on at 700 yards, or just under 700 yards in the first stage, and it was spot on at every other distance. I had no problems whatsoever. There's one stage that I really enjoy, because it's called like prone madness, and basically you get prone, you're going to engage far left targets, or the far left lane targets at about I think 450 yards, if I remember correctly. Sorry, I got to go through my stage cards. Yeah, and the 450 yards, or I'm sorry, 492 yards. Then you're coming back over to like 570 yards, and engaging a small confirmation plate. It's probably 3/10 of a mil, and then you know, the other targets go from smaller, tiny to tiny, smaller, small. You know, they're maybe medium sized, but they're all pretty small. Dan Jarecki normally sets up those matches. He likes that, and I have fun with it too. So it was a blast. I almost cleaned that stage. I think I had the second best score overall that day. I dropped one. I made an error. I overestimated the wind on that stage, but it was a blast. We had a lot of fun. It was hot, but I mean, that's how life is in Texas at this time. So, you know, I can say, you know, I went in to buying this tuner with the intent that I would, you know, not have to do so much load development. The barrel was cut very well, so I'm not too worried about finding the perfect node. I know a lot of you will disagree with me on that, but what I did is I tuned it with the brake rather than spend a lot of primer and bullets and powder doing load development. So basically I chose 38 grains of H4350, seated the bullet at 2.79 seating depth, and my cartridge base to ogive is about 2.1 something, I don't remember. So I'm shooting 105 burgers right now. I'm gonna be shooting the 110 A-tips here pretty soon, just to see how they work. Pretty soon I might be shooting whatever the heck is available because bullets are scarce. I have more powder than I have bullets, and I have more primer than I have bullets. So, yay, bullet drought. One other tip. I've started drilling holes. Once I load 12 rounds, I'll measure down to where that last cartridge is with the depth gauge. Then I'll measure halfway up the bullet with the calipers, and I'll measure overall that length less half of the cartridge diameter. That way I can always see the back of a piece of brass and know that I have it loaded, so it's kind of like a little window to make sure that you're all loaded up. That worked really well. I had a mental error the previous match and didn't have enough rounds. Had to do a tactical reload and still got my rounds off, but still though, I was like, man, if I wouldn't have done that, or if I would have had my rounds, I wouldn't have been under so much stress. And I was on the PRS barricade, which is our timed stage, so that was a lot of fun. But I love the tuner brake. The concussion is great. I shot it all day in that heat. I didn't get any sinus issues. I didn't have any eye irritation. Normally I suffer really bad from that. And it was great. It worked a lot better at mitigating recoil and also the concussion to the face and to the sinuses. So I'm very pleased with it. I highly recommend it. Sneak preview, I hope he doesn't mind, but Eric is actually, he's coming out with something else cool, so I'll let you know whenever I can about that, but I'm pretty excited about it. I think a few of you will be too. But yeah, so there was a few other people who had bought the tuner brake at the match. One of them was using it. It worked great for him too as far as mitigating the recoil. I had a lot of questions about it, so you know, I was glad to tell him, hey, it worked great, even though I had a lot of skepticism surrounding the fact that, oh, well, you didn't know what you didn't make sure that at distance it was going to work great, or at 1,000 yards. Well, it was working fine. I used Fordoff, geoballistics, and a Kestrel with the applied ballistics software to see what my to see what my dope should be with a velocity of 28.48 on a 6 Creedmoor. It was all spot on. It all lined up perfectly. At 637 yards, 3.9 was my elevation. 3.8 was my elevation, and it was spot on. The groups at 637 yards it was all squared up on the plate, just center. So as long as my wind was good, it was holding those tight groups even out to distance, so no issue there. So yeah, I can say, at least for now, the brake is working great. I have no doubts that it's going to, even in colder temperatures. I did some testing indoors with it, and it held up great there at 100 yards. So I know that's probably not a great overall test, but I'll know this winter how it does. A few other things that I'm going to start doing. So my Hornady brass is wearing out a little bit. I've got some Lapua small rifle primer brass. I've got about 1,500 small rifle primers. They're Winchester. They go bang, they work. So I'm going to be loading with those. I'm also going to try some Prime 107 cartridges that I had shot early on when I was using this barrel. I'm going to reload with those and see how well they compare to the Hornady, since they're large rifle primer brass. And then we'll see how all of that works. But overall, very pleased with the brake, very pleased with the Terminus, very pleased with the Razor. Everything on this system I really like, and I'm glad that I purchased it all. So anyways, if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments below. Go ahead and like and subscribe if you're enjoying the content. It lets me know that it's meaningful and it's helpful to people. If you want any more information about what I'm doing for reloading, I'd be glad to talk about that too, but it's real simple. I mean, I'm using an RCBS single stage press. I have one. I have Frankfurt Arsenal IntelliDropper. I have Hornady match grade dies, and they seem to be working great. So for now, very happy with the results. We'll see how the Lopua brass does. Oh, and I use an AP Integrations annealer. So all of that's working out really well. Really enjoying shooting this, the competitions here lately. And hopefully I can break into the, top 5 this season in our local series and also in our club standings. So that'd be great, because last year I was lucky to be mid-pack. So I'll just keep improving. I'm practicing a lot of dry firing, especially with the difficulty you can have sourcing components right now and ammo in general. And dry firing, that's something you can really do to help improve your scores as well. If that reticle moves at all when you're dry firing, something's wrong. You're moving the rifle. So break a shot, make sure the reticle doesn't move, and then you know that you're staying squared on the target. And that's the objective when you're doing dry fire practice, and also make sure you're always safe and clear prior to doing dry firing. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it's helpful. Have a great day.